Coming up on Southern Cross News, an English raider has taken out the Melbourne Cup, with cross-counters storming home late to win the great race. Back home, Tasmanians held their breath at celebrations across the state. In other news, what's been dubbed the trial of the century is getting underway in New York, where the Mexican drug lord known as El Chapo is facing life in prison. A 33-year-old man has died after being bitten by a shark in Queensland, and farmers welcome new laws which could address staff shortages. For these stories and more, join your local news team right here at 6. Tonight, a thrilling finish as Cross Counter storms home to win Australia's most famous race. Tasmanians turn out for Cup celebrations across the state. A Launceston man fronts the Supreme Court over failing to report a murder. A 33-year-old tourist dies after a Whitsunday shark attack. Tasmanian farmers welcome a decision to relax rules for working backpackers. And potential delays for a major UTAS infrastructure project.
Live from our Tasmanian headquarters, this is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Good evening everyone and welcome to Southern Cross News. An English horse owned by the Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates has produced a run for the ages to clinch the Melbourne Cup on a day where the weather delivered a bit of everything. Cross Counter was well back, but surged home late to claim victory, giving jockey Kerrin McAvoy his third win in Australia's most famous horse race.
Cross Counter by name, now Cross Country by reputation.
Here comes Cross Counter.
Melbourne's heaviest downpour in months didn't stop thousands of punters from getting to Flemington this morning to witness another chapter of racing history. Ponchos and umbrellas were the must-have accessories of the day.
Usually it's a battle to leave Flemington, but today's soggy start saw racegoers grappling from the get-go.
Here in Tasmania, revellers embrace the racing festivities across the state. But it wasn't just about fine food, wine and fashion. Many events were raising vital funds for good causes.
The crowd watching eagerly as the horses bolt down the Flemington track. Ruby Carmen, Southern Cross News.
To the day's other news now, and a Launceston man has faced a Supreme Court jury over failing to report a killing. Robert William Broad has pleaded not guilty in relation to the murder of Tyson Timothy Clark Robertson in 2016. Our reporter Sean McComish has more.
3 witnesses took the stand today in the trial of Robert William Broad, who's accused of failing to report the killing of Tyson Timothy Clark Robertson in July 2016. The body of Mr Robertson was uncovered at a Mayfield home in April last year. The trial continues tomorrow.
2 people accused of invading the home of a Deloraine man armed with a baseball bat last week have fronted the Launceston Magistrates Court today. Mandy Jones and Philip Milburn have both been charged with aggravated burglary and aggravated armed robbery following the alleged incident on Friday. Ms Jones was granted bail and will next appear on December 12, while Mr Milburn and had his matter adjourned and will front court again later this month. An extraordinary security operation is underway in New York for what's already been called the trial of the century. Under heavy guard, notorious drug cartel boss El Chapo left solitary confinement to prepare for his hearing. But lawyers first need to find 12 people willing to sit on the jury.
The streets of New York were rain-soaked as the infamous El Chapo faced court.
A decision to relax rules for working backpackers has today been welcomed by Tasmanian farmers. Under the changes, visa holders can work on farms for longer, addressing significant labour shortages impacting producers across the nation.
Hundreds of overseas backpackers will pass through these orchards before this cherry season is over. They're a vital source of labour for many farmers. Michelle Wisby, Southern Cross News.
It's been billed as a road trip through the heart of Queensland, but the Prime Minister is spending more time in a private jet than he is on the campaign bus. Labor condemned the trip as a gimmick, but the PM claims he'll be able to spend more time listening to the people.
As if to prove he is Dinky Di.
Breakfast of champions.
Launceston's $260 million University of Tasmania relocation could be facing delays. UTAS has not yet filed a development application with the council for the major move from Newnham to Inveresk. There had been hopes construction could start this year, but council now believes that could happen in the middle of 2019.
And we'd like to see some construction started next year, towards the middle to the end of next year, which would be absolutely fantastic.
Well, stay with us. Still to come in our broadcast tonight, how a lack of mobile phone coverage is affecting the state's tourism industry. A cliffhanger on election eve in the US, with record votes already counted as the latest controversy explodes for the president. And the gift that was a century in the making. Welcome back, everyone. There are renewed calls tonight from Tasmania's tourism and hospitality industries to increase black spot mobile phone coverage in key destinations. Grindelwald, north of Launceston, is just one attraction where reception is so poor visitors can rarely make calls or post to social media.
This is one of the key tourism attractions for northern Tasmania, a small community just outside Launceston, where visitors are taken back in time and transported to Switzerland. Jessica Moran, Southern Cross News.
Several major news networks in the US have joined Facebook and dropped a Donald Trump election ad deemed racist and factually incorrect. The commercial focuses on immigration, a central dividing issue as millions of Americans prepare to vote.
For Julio Olvera, immigration is an issue very close to home.
So that's Mexico. Pretty much, yes.
Vision has emerged of a man's very lucky escape from an explosion at a fireworks factory. The worker had been using a wheelbarrow to move gunpowder in China when static electricity caused it to ignite. Despite the huge ball of flame, the worker suffered non-life-threatening burns. Returning now to our Melbourne Cup coverage, and the exclusive birdcage wasn't exempt from Victoria's flash flooding. Celebrities, sports stars and big names from business and politics dodged puddles as they made their way to the marquees.
The birdcage is known for its exclusivity, but this year it was more difficult to get into than ever before, mostly due to the moat which surrounded the marquees, caused by this morning's downpour.
And Tom Johnson will be joining us with more of the day's sport news a little later in the bulletin, with Andrew Bogert raising the roof in front of a packed Melbourne arena. Tasmania fights back after two baby blues put on a big partnership, and the rising star set to miss the Asian Cup. Those stories for you shortly, but first after the break we'll take a look at the day's headlines. And then the Spice Girls confirm the rumours they're back in business. And the Australian city, which could soon be one of the first in the world to have flying taxis. Welcome back, everyone. These are some of the stories making headlines tonight. Cross-counter storms home in Australia's most famous race. A Launceston man fronts the Supreme Court over failing to report a murder. Tasmanian farmers welcome a decision to relax rules for working backpackers. And potential delays for a major UTAS relocation project. Australia is a step closer to becoming one of the first countries in the world to test run an Uber aircraft site. Uber executives are in the country to talk with the government about how to launch their new flying rideshare system.
For once, Melbourne's growing population has worked in our favour.
In both Sydney and in Melbourne, the population is large and growing very rapidly. And so we see that there is a clear need for this type of a service.
Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. The Australian share market closed nearly 1% higher after strong gains from banking, energy and material stocks. The ASX 200 rising by 57.1 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 72 US cents and 81.76 Japanese yen. Sport is next with Tom Johnson. Good evening, Tom. Tasmania's openers are showing plenty of fight in the Sheffield Shield.
Yeah, they've put in a huge effort today, Jo, but there's still a long way to go for the Tigers. We'll have all the highlights from the match against the Blues after the break. Plus, we hear from Australia's newest Test batsman about the side's road to redemption. And we'll bring you more from Flemington after cross-counter's rousing win in the Melbourne Cup. Welcome back. The biggest racing stable in the world, Godolphin, is celebrating its first ever Melbourne Cup victory. Jockey Kerrin McAvoy changed his cup ride to the English stayer Cross Counter just weeks ago, a decision which has paid off in spades.
The punters may have been dancing in the rain, but it was hardly much fun for the jockeys in the early going at Flemington.
Geez, they're going up the straight there. We couldn't see him.
Two of the youngest players on the field have caused all the headaches for Tasmania in its Sheffield Shield clash against New South Wales. The Tigers trailed by 334 runs at stumps on day two after our bowlers struggled to split one superb partnership. Two teenagers made life tough for Tasmania on the second day of play. Young prodigies Jason Sanger and Jack Edwards were pocketing runs and toying with the Tigers in the slips. Our newest Test batsman, Marnus Labuschagne, says he and his Australian teammates must show their love of the game to win back fans' respect. Labuschagne is just one of a raft of Aussie batsmen fighting to play in next month's first Test in Adelaide.
Sitting on a plane for 3 hours wouldn't be pleasant after having buttock surgery.
Unusual surgery?
It was a bit, yeah. And that wraps up the day in sport, Jo.
It certainly does. Thanks very much for that, Tom. Well, coming up after the break, Carmen will be joining us with a look at the weather forecast.
Good evening. Temperatures were 1 to 2 degrees above average about the east coast today, with friendly beaches reaching 23 degrees. The rest of the state was generally 2 to 4 degrees below average. Hobart 19, Launceston 18, Burnie 16 and Devonport 17. Maria Island reached 19 today, 18 at St Helens and Grove, Ouse 17, 16 at Low Head, King and Flinders Islands 15 along with Smithton and Strawn, Lyweni just 14 degrees. On the satellite picture, we can see cloud moving across Tasmania from the northwest. Mid to high level cloud with embedded thunderstorms covers the southeastern third of Australia, and mid to low level cloud moves over parts of South and Western Australia. Tomorrow, a cold front moves across Tasmania, Victoria and New South Wales in the morning, followed by a trough that will move across Tasmania in the afternoon. A trough with several low pressure systems extends from New South Wales to the top end and down the west coast of Western Australia. The remainder of the country is mostly cloud-free. To coastal waters, winds 20 to 30 knots, mostly easing to 15 to 25 knots in the evening, seas 2 to 3 metres. A strong wind warning for all coastal waters except the upper east coast and southeast inshore waters, and a small craft wind alert for the lakes. A bushwalkers weather alert for the southwest and central plateau, and a sheep graziers warning for the southeast and east coast districts. Tomorrow, a shower or two for Hobart, 15, 14 at Geeveston, showers there, showers also at Bothwell, 12 degrees. Showers also in the north, Launceston 16, Devonport and Cressy 15. The west won't escape those showers either, 14 in Burnie, Curry 13 and Strahan 13 with a possible storm. A possible shower for St Helens 17, 17 also at Swansea, an afternoon shower or two there. Orford, similar conditions 16. The UV is a high 8 tomorrow. Looking ahead to Thursday, showers about the west, central and southern districts, mainly fine elsewhere. Friday, showers in the west and north, extending statewide during the afternoon and early evening. Saturday, showers about the west, far south and Bass Strait Islands, mainly fine elsewhere. Sunny weather for Perth, Brisbane, Cairns and Broome tomorrow. Wet weather for most other centres. Currently in Hobart, it's partly cloudy and 18, Launceston mostly cloudy 14, Devonport partly cloudy 13. And Jo, I hope you had better luck picking a Melbourne Cup winner than I did today.
Well, no, I didn't, and we keep saying there's always next year, but next year I'm sure I won't pick the winner either. So anyway, we had fun, didn't we? That's all from the news team for now. Thanks so much for your company. We'll see you a little later. Bye.